We're finished. Don't expect any work out of me.
All right.
That's what happens.
Jenny, are you prepared to chair? You ready to go?
Okay, celebrated.
I am driving. I'm not able to.
Okay. I can run through the agenda if that's better for you.
Yes. Please.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. This is our December regular meeting for the Travel Council Advisory Board. We have a quorum present, so I call this meeting to order at 3:05 p.m. On December 13th, 2022. Jenny, the chair, is calling from the road, and so I'm going to chair in her stead. Thanks for coming. A relatively short agenda. We'll be doing approving meeting minutes. We're gonna do some interviews for some prospective candidates for the Travel Council Board. Not everybody who applied is able to make it today, so we will be having more interviews in January, and we won't be deliberating or nominating new members until January, just so everybody's clear on that. And then Love Communications is on board. They're going to share a marketing update for the fall 2022 media that we've had in market. And then I'll provide just a quick update on what happened through the budget process following our last meeting, what got approved, what didn't, and then that's it. So if there's relatively short, and then if there's anything else that we want to discuss, kind of going into next year, happy to do that as well. Let's do introductions really quick. Let's do online first. Mark, I'll start with you, and then just do popcorn and say who you want to introduce themselves next.
Okay, sounds good. Greetings, everybody there in Moab. Mark Stevenette here in a very nippy and snowy Salt Lake City. So I'm with Love Communications, a VP and Group Account Director, and happy to be with you today. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Hannah Saunders.
Mark, hi August and everyone. Hannah Saunders here, Digital Media Director at Love, and I've been working with Moab for about 5 or 6 years now. So excited to talk about all the campaign performance that we're seeing so far. And I will pass it over to Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Griffin. I'm VP Media Director here at Love, and I work with Hannah in placing any more traditional media placements. And I will pass it to Adelaide.
Hi, I'm Adelaide. I'm an account manager here at Love, and I work with Mark on the day-to-day account management side of things. So nice to be here with all of you. And that's everyone from the Love team that's here.
All right, Kaylin, do you want to kick us off with the Moab people?
Yes. Kaylin Jones, Moab City Council, Travel Council Liaison. Shall I just pick people who are not on video?
Yeah, just pick someone. They'll say something.
Yes. Alex.
Hey there, how's it going? I'm Alex Borshevsky. I'm a board member.
Hi, Alex.
Maybe you can't see everybody else, so let's go to Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm the chair. Sorry, guys. I had a last minute meeting up here in Salt Lake. So, yeah, chair of the Travel Council and I work for Red Tail Air in town doing sales and marketing. And on to someone else I can't see.
Let's go to Lacey.
Hi, I'm Lacey Shumway, the Executive Director of the Moab Chamber of Commerce, board member, and I am home with a house full of sick people today. So sorry about
Sorry. I'm not.
I thought y'all were doing a bunch of sit-ups or something last time I saw.
Exactly. I was like, how in the world did you get sick so fast? But I thought exercise was supposed to help.
Brian.
Hello, everybody. Brian Hunnings, General Manager at Red Cliffs Lodge and also a member of the Travel Council.
All right, and then we got staff, Robert and Rachel. Whoever wants to go for it. All right, connection. Sounds like they're gun shy. Rachel is our administrative assistant, and Robert is our assistant marketing director, attending remotely. That'll bring us into our room where we got Ben.
Hi, Ben Alter, Economic Development Specialist.
I'm the economic development director, August Granite.
Mary McGann, commission. Lori McFarland, citizen.
Vega Metzner Moab to Monument Valley Film Commissioner.
Awesome. With that in mind, are there any conflicts of interest, disclosures, or ex parte communication? Hearing none, are there any citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we don't have any presentations scheduled outside of the regular agenda. So we're going to go to our first discussion action item, approval of November 8th meeting minutes. I'll pull those up here. Were there any share my screen? I guess I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I'd make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Any discussion or changes that folks would like to make? I'd entertain a vote on the motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Love the emoji vote. That's great. All right, we're going to go to our next discussion action item, which is interviews for Travel Council Advisory Board positions expiring at the end of this year. For reference, we have Jason Taylor, who's not in attendance today, who usually represents his businesses of note for the purpose of this board is car and OHV rental businesses, which is subject to TRCCA. And Daniel Leverage represents the Hoodoo, who's not able to be here today, who represents a TRT paying business. And then Jenny Gleason, who's here and is reapplying for her position representing a non-TRCC or a TRT paying entity. Jason and Daniel are both stepping down, and so there's two open slots, and Jenny has reapplied. So we will go. This process means we have to reapply, and interview every candidate. So not even Jenny gets a free pass. So let's do. Jenny, are you prepared to go first, or do you want Lori to go first? You're in the car. I'll let you make that call yourself.
Can I not go first?
Okay. Lori, are you okay going first? Okay. We just have 6 pretty straightforward questions. We ask everybody the same question, so there's no so it's standard. I'll just start with the first one here. If you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, what is your background?
I can go back pretty far because I'm old, but I think most pertinent is I came to Moab in 1994-5 as a river guide, and was only staying one summer and decided I liked it. Kind of okay, so I made it 5 years, and now 27 years later I'm still here and still loving it. Participate as a TRCCA paying business. We collect lots of revenue by showing people the backcountry, taking them out on tours and doing some rentals, and doing our best towards sharing this beautiful place with other people so they'll fall in love with it and take care of it.
Awesome. And what is your understanding of the Travel Council? via the board itself, the travel council budget.
Well, I'm sure that will be more. There'll be more knowledge soon. But my husband served on the travel council for about 8 years back in the survey of. It's probably been 2000 to about 2007, 8-ish with Marion DeLay. And we all were preparing for the Olympics in Utah in 2002 and the opening of Red Cliffs Lodge and all the excitement that came around that. So we were asked by Mayor Dave Saxon like that to make this a year-round economy. And we have kind of taken that on through the travel council and through our businesses to try to help this expand to be more of a year-round economy. But the pounding on the desk was real.
Awesome.
That was back in the day when Mayor Dave said, make this year-round economy. So that's kind of what I think the travel council's partially about, is well as economic development, as well as maybe working together collaboratively to figure out ways to direct guests to how to behave properly and use this resource without abusing it.
Awesome. And what do you hope to bring to the travel council board, and what are you hoping to gain from your potential involvement on the board?
I feel like the people that come together to volunteer their time to make Moab a better place is a group I want to be a part of. I think that it's a little bit hard to be mad about processes if you're not part of the solution. So I have admittedly been frustrated with processes in the past and visited quite a bit with Ben in August about how do we fix this and how do we make it better. So I own that. But when people come together to own their involvement in the community as a volunteer, I think those are people I would like to rub shoulders with.
Awesome. And this is a two-part. So within the context of economic development in general and tourism in particular, what do you think are some of Moab and Grand County's best assets and attributes? And on the flip side, what do you think are some of Moab and Grand County's biggest challenges or obstacles?
I think, speaking from my own experience, what brought me here was the land, and what kept me here was the land. Feeling that connection, living in a city for a lot of years. You can drive 2, 3, 4 hours to get to the land, or you can drive to City Market and be in the land. And so even though if you're working and doing the day-to-day things, when you're surrounded by all of this, I just have a sense of it's very revitalizing to your soul. And so to me, it's important to be able to enjoy that, but take care of that.
Mhm.
And so part of what brought me here was that quirky vibe. I want to keep the quirky vibe. I want Moab to be that quirky vibe. I really believe that diversifying our economy is going to help, as long as we choose the right pieces of the economy that help us keep the quirky vibe. I don't want us to just turn into another cookie cutter community. I want us to be Moab always.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. What is your understanding of tourism taxes and how those monies are to be distributed and allocated?
You know, I've been diving into that in the last few years, trying to be more educated about all of that. I think it's a little bit of a challenge to not necessarily see that funnel as directly. I checked the city budget last night, and the city gets about 1.8 million from TRT, TRCCA. The county has much more of a stewardship over that. I think it's important that we know where the money is coming from, and then responsibly figure out the best way to use that so that we can preserve that quirkiness, but also direct people that are coming to visit properly so that we keep them in the places that they should be and out of the places where maybe they're not really looking for. I remember I worked in the airline industry for a lot of years, and on an overnight, I would walk the city and end up seeing neighborhoods and all of that because I was seeking to see that, but I don't know that all of the tourists want to see neighborhoods quite as much as they do, because I think maybe if we guide them to the attractions and the features and do the job of gently showing them where the cool stuff is, then we also preserve that neighborhood feeling without kind of being invaded by folks who don't really necessarily want to be there anyway. But if we guide them to where the attractions are, I think that we might find a nicer feeling. And believe it or not, I believe that the travel council and those resources can be really beneficial to the community with that.
Awesome. Last one, and this is a very straightforward one. Are you prepared to serve as an officer of the advisory board if nominated? Is there anything in your schedule that would not permit you to attend board meetings the second Tuesday of the month and any special meetings that may be called for needed approval?
No,
Awesome.
I don't have a problem with Tuesdays.
Sweet. So that's all the questions we have. We'll do Jenny, and then you're welcome to sit and attend the meeting if we go, but up to you. So if you're interested in this moment, you can hang out. Thanks for taking the time to apply and
Pleasure.
again, we'll be having more interviews in January and making a final recommendation at that point of the board, or at least the voting members will be. Jenny, are you ready?
Yes.
Hey,
Best.
we're gonna
right.
dive right in. Jenny, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what is your background?
Yeah, I've been in Moab about a year and a half. I moved here from Salt Lake. I was there for about a year and a half in Salt Lake from Breckenridge, Colorado. And yeah, I kind of call Breckenridge home. I was really involved in the community out there. The chamber president, and then also organizer of a couple of the events and ancillary chair. And for also the US Pro Cycling. It's a bike race that went through the Rockies 2 summers, and Breckenridge was a host town to well, the first 2 summers. So I planned the events in Breckenridge. Yeah, so I really love being in sales and events. It's my passion.
What is your understanding of the Travel Council Advisory Board?
So the Travel Council Advisory Board, we is a travel council on how to appropriate the TRT and TRCC funds through the budget process and also other grants and that you guys have.
You're chopping up just a little bit, but
Can you hear? Sorry. Oh, are you there?
Yep, we're here.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure. No, but we heard your answer there. The next question is, what do you hope to bring to the Travel Council, and what are you hoping to gain from your potential involvement on the board?
So I have been on the board for a little over a year, and I just love working with other people, trying to find a compromise, whether it's legislation or just activities going on in town, just kind of hearing everyone and connecting people and networking. And so just kind of bringing that to the board, just kind of a whole camaraderie of working together.
Awesome. And within the context of economic development in general and tourism in particular, what do you think are some of Moab and Grand County's best assets and attributes? And what do you think are some of Moab and Grand County's biggest challenges or obstacles?
Yes, the best assets definitely recreation, the outdoors, the national parks, the state parks, and just the accessibility that Moab has to all of those. Also, just the seasonality is one of the hardest things, I believe, that we are all trying to find appropriate balance. I guess that's the best word, is just with the seasonality and how high the highs are and how low the lows are with employees and retaining them, as well as providing housing for all of those people that come in.
Awesome. And what's your understanding of tourism taxes and how those monies are to be distributed and allocated?
So the TRT and the TRCC, so the transient room tax, it's a tax on the rental rooms, as in hotels, and it's just things for 30 days or less. And so we collect those, and then we distribute. Oh, sorry, hang on. So those are the two different kinds of taxes. Red Tail doesn't collect any taxes, so Red Tail is definitely one of the ones that do not collect any taxes. So that's the one I am applying to be at. So we advise the Travel Council on the proportion of the allocation of the taxes.
Awesome. And then lastly, are you prepared to serve as an officer of the advisory board if nominated? Is there anything in your schedule that would not permit you to attend board meetings the second Tuesday of the month and any special meetings that may be called for immediate approval?
I am ready to serve, and I do apologize I had to miss today. So just, but I am able to serve 98% of the time.
Thanks so much, Jenny. That's all of the applicants that we have here today. So we'll move on with our agenda. Right along to the fall 2022 marketing update from Love. So take it away.
Thanks, August. Can you give permission to Hannah so she can?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep.
Perfect. And then we'll have Hannah and
To screen share.
yeah.
Yes, please. Okay,
All
awesome.
right, you should be able to.
Yeah, pulling it up right now. Did you want to say anything else, Mark? Are we good?
No, that's it. Just want to make sure you got it.
Ethan.
Go team.
Okay, awesome. Well, August and everyone, thank you so much for having us kind of participate in this monthly meeting. Of course, we give you guys kind of weekly updates as we progressed into our drive and our fly campaigns. And so for today, we're going to look at kind of some high level slides on both of those campaigns, the learnings that we're looking at from market, from ad exposed, hotel bookings and engagement. And so Megan and I will just kind of go through each of these campaigns. And again, I know sharing screens are a little bit difficult, but please kind of raise your hand or kind of interrupt me if there's kind of questions that I can address while the data is on the slides. If not, we can kind of do the Q&A at the end of this. So as a reminder, we're going to start with the FLY program. So the FLY program is actually slated to go into Q1 of 2023. Again, this was really focusing on Denver, LA, Salt Lake, and Chicago markets. We do have some national presence when it comes to kind of capitalizing on search and keyword intent, as well as looking at kind of key audiences on TripAdvisor who are maybe looking at competitive destinations or even Utah, and we want to convince them to come down to Moab with our different messaging. So I think that you guys have seen this kind of outline and provided some feedback with this strategy and markets and allocation. So just as a reminder, what we'll be focusing on today is kind of the beginning of the campaign that started mid-October through the month of November. We have a really strong presence for December through March as well, just talking about kind of making sure that we're keeping Moab top of mind for those fly markets as they're booking either their holiday or kind of spring trip planning. We want to make sure that we are competitively looking at those travel intenders. So again, from a kind of high level from the campaign beginning all the way through November, we've gained about 18 million impressions. So again, those are kind of eyeballs across all of our digital assets. What we look at when we talk about post-impression rate, just so you guys are aware of this metric, this is something that we're able to track based on some pixel placements on the website. And Love Communications has found a great correlation with post-impression rate and bookings over the last decade. And so post-impressions are really when someone is exposed to a display ad or a video ad. They might not click on it because not everyone clicks on banners these days. But if they search and they go to a Moab landing page or any of our like local business partner websites that we have pixels on, it'll track that ad exposure. And so again, this is a really strong metric for us to, again, optimize towards, since there's not, a booking opportunity on Discover Moab, because we know that it correlates to that action. And so we have obviously different benchmarks when it comes to post-impression rate. Right now, we're seeing that the Fly campaign is driving a little bit of a higher post-impression rate than our Drive campaign, but both are relatively, very strong. And we're seeing that yield hotel bookings in the Moab market. So to campaign to date, we've seen about 2,000 ad exposed hotel bookings. The way that we track that is similar to other DMOs and the state. We use the platform Adara. It's also called Impact. We're able to make sure that all of our partners take that pixel so that in real time, we're seeing if they're driving travel intent. Are they looking at flights? Are they looking at hotels? What are their competitor markets that they're looking at? We're also able to look at their booking window. And so right now we're looking at people are searching, they're researching, and they're booking about 41 days out. So that also allows us to understand how real life implications might change people's research and booking habits. We do have a pay-per-click component here. So that's obviously on Google, having those keywords that we're bidding on. And we're seeing some really good engagement here. So our click-through rate for tourism in our local DMO is around 3%, and we're seeing about a 19% click-through rate. So the search for Moab and our different keywords is definitely something that we're seeing some great engagement with. We also want to make sure that we're marrying that bidding strategy with some efficiency. And so we have an average cost per click that we look at. And right now, obviously we're being very efficient there with less than 50 cents per click that we're allocating. We also want to make sure that, yes, we are optimizing towards clicks when it comes to search. But again, post-impression rate is really what we look at when we look at our programmatic display, video, and then any placements that we have on TripAdvisor. And so we really want to make sure that, yes, everyone, saw our ad, they remember Moab, they go to Google, they get to our site, but we also want to make sure that they're spending a good amount of time with your site. And so on average, we are seeing about 2 minutes spent on that site, which is great. And then we're really, really excited about our Connected TV program. And so Connected TV is basically anything that is on the living room screen through an app. So this has to be obviously ad supported. So Netflix is not one of them, but think about Hulu, Prime, Amazon, HBO, basically everything besides Netflix at this point. I'm sure Netflix is thinking about it as well. So again, the benefit of Connected TV is that we're really able to layer a lot of data to make sure that we're hitting specific households. And so because it's tied to IP address, we're not only able to reach them on that living room screen when they're very much binging and paying attention, we also are able to retarget them on their mobile and desktop with display. So again, we want to make sure that, hey, they're looking at Moab, they're seeing that it's a big brand that comes to life, that's specific to their interests, but we also want to retarget them to make sure that if they're using their mobile device, as we know that people do have dual screening habits, that we're bringing them further down that funnel and tracking that kind of website conversion that we're able to look at. And so again, we're really excited about the media mix that we have for this Fly campaign. So moving forward into kind of that hotel booking summary, again, after ad exposure, we're looking at about 2,000 hotel bookings so far generated. That equates into about $709,000 generated. Right now, we're looking at an ADR for this around 157, 158. So that kind of allows us to see per partner, which partner is driving a higher ADR, because that also tells us about their audience. And so TripAdvisor tends to have an audience that pays a little bit more for ADR, and that's what we're also seeing so far through this campaign analysis. When it comes to market performance, again, on that flow chart, we're really focusing on LA, Chicago, Salt Lake, and Denver. But as I mentioned, we do have some national presence, and that has a lot to do with just TripAdvisor and pay-per-click, right? If someone is researching a specific Moab branded keyword, we don't really care where they are. We want to make sure that we're getting in front of them with our message, controlling the narrative and providing some support. So you'll see that majority of our impressions are going towards, the big markets that we're promoting, kind of these flights that come in daily. But we are seeing some great engagement from some other markets like San Francisco and Phoenix. Again, Salt Lake is one of our tried and true markets year over year, Denver being second. And so we always see the engagement a little bit higher with a market that's, obviously mature. Again, also what we're looking at is not only, okay, if they are seeing our ad and going to our website, but what key landing pages are they going to? Again, based on SEO, the homepage naturally ranks pretty high. And then we didn't want to pixel every single page. And so we wanted to make sure that we saw the key ones. And so again, we're looking at Arches, that specific page about the national park, lodging options and events being really the top specific pages on Discover Moab. We do have some partner pixels still firing, so you will see some, inns and hotels and local businesses. And then, it moves forward down to interests like hiking and ATV riding. I believe in the past, we've kind of walked through creative and got some insight. This is kind of showing some of these placements in real life. Again, the two to the left is on TripAdvisor. These are specifically targeting people based on their search habits. And then on the right, our programmatic partner allows us to find our audiences across multiple websites. So it's really about the market. So geographically making sure that we're in the right markets, behaviorally and interests and keywords, making sure that we're looking at people who are travel intenders to Moab that match kind of our audiences and so forth. So we've developed, obviously, a couple of different creative messages. It's always really important to A/B test different messages so that the algorithm can do its best to find the right people in the right state of mind with that right message. So this is looking at our 4 display variations, cliff, the shrimp, violin, and hikers. Now the backbone of those messages were really about the main kind of content pillars we wanted to focus on. And so shrimp is part of kind of that scientific, the more that it highlights these things more in long form when we get to our paid social and the other campaign. Obviously, violin is talking about the arts and culture that marries the landscape, and then cliff and hikers are kind of those beautiful shots that everyone loves. We do have a 15 and a 30-second video that highlights, all of these different content messages, bringing in sustainability and visit responsibility as well. And so as of right now, we're seeing, a pretty even engagement rate across all of the creatives. And so we haven't paused any yet, but this is what we look at to monitor and understand, hey, should we shift more impressions to messages that are resonating the best? So something with our connected TV partner, again, that's kind of a reach platform that's driven by data. And so because we were able to pixel Discover Moab's website, we're able to track that someone was ad exposed to our commercial, whether it was the 15-second or a 30-second. And we're able to not only track them to the website so that we can, tie back that attribution. We're able to compare that exposed audience to a control audience that looks similar. What's really important is understanding, are we driving a lift, a correlation of more actions on the website if they saw our ad first? And so we're looking at kind of that conversion rate comparison, and this is going to the homepage and multiple pages. So we consider kind of a bounce rate and all of those different metrics we talked about. But we are seeing that people who are exposed to our TV ad are going to our website at a higher rate. We're also able to see, based on kind of that website engagement, which days of the week or different moments of the day are people going to the website. And we are seeing a trend so far that Sunday scaries, I guess, is the day where people are looking at vacation before their work week starts and starting to look at different opportunities. again, this is kind of just a high level. So if I'm on my, connected TV and I'm either on YouTube or HBO and this, advertising comes on, and then I'm on my mobile device, I could get served a display ad, or I just go to my laptop. And so we're able to track that person based on their IP address. So again, it's really important trying to get more attribution for our kind of broader reach channels as we, secure kind of all of these metrics that ladder up to our goals. When it comes to paid search, again, what I like about this program is that we have that high reach that's really data driven. We have kind of these banners that are finding people across multiple websites. We have a very strong TripAdvisor presence to convert people who are in that right state of mind. And then we still are capitalizing on people who are searching specific keywords. So Dallas Miller is our supervisor for PPC. So if there's any specific questions, I can kind of ladder them up to him. But this is basically broke down into different campaigns, different ad groups, and then different keywords. So we're looking at national parks, attractions, anything with Moab in the search we want to get ahead of, activities, and hotel lodging. So you can see that obviously national parks, we want the bulk of that. So Arches, Canyonlands, we want to make sure that we're controlling that narrative. So you'll see that those are kind of the bulk of the search so far. Now, within those ad groups, we are looking at kind of top performing keywords, both by impression delivery and also that CTR and that CPC. So again, this is something that Dallas looks at every day to monitor, make sure that we're not overbidding on Moab restaurants versus, making sure that we're really getting ahead of, Arches National Park content. And so when people click on this, we have specific pages that they go to. So again, that consumer journey is something that we're controlling and handling. And then obviously from those campaigns, we do want to monitor and understand, average time on page. Are they going to multiple pages per session? We do feel strongly that if someone's searching, even though it's not organic traffic always spends longer because someone is doing that without any coercion or influence, right? PPC should still be relatively strong as well. So we look at average time on page. This is obviously going to be a little bit higher than TripAdvisor and our programmatic partners, for instance. So just highlighting some of those insights that I've already spoke to. Salt Lake and Denver continue to be some of our top markets. Connected TV, we're hitting really great benchmarks, and we're really looking forward to a strong consistency with this channel in Q1. We always see across the board that January is a big booking season in general when people are with their families, either trying to get away from them or planning with them. We don't judge. And so again, we want to make sure that Moab's top of mind, even if that trip might come in March or April. Creatively, we're consistently looking at if we're going to see a top performer, if we should kind of shift some of that creative that way. And then again, we want to continue to monitor that CTR and cost per click to make sure that we're continuing those strong efficiencies that we've already generated for this campaign. Any questions on the Fly campaign before we pivot to the Drive? Okay.
No, I think I don't have any questions.
I know it's a lot. Once you guys probably read this, you might have some questions. And so that's what we're here for. So switching gears into our Drive campaign, this was a little bit more robust and concentrated in 2022. And so this was really to focus on kind of those lower hanging fruit markets. We see within our travel trends, right, that inflation across gas and, and that's for cars and flights are making people kind of lag a little bit with their booking. They're still researching, road trips are still something that people are looking at. And so it makes a lot of sense to have both a Fly and Drive strategy in place so that we capitalize on both of those ways to get to Moab. This campaign obviously has a little bit more of what we call legacy, so really kind of boots on the ground advertising in the Wasatch Front. With broadcast TV and cable, we have some great transit that Megan's going to go over, print, and then we also have paid social, a programmatic partner, and an OTA. So we always want to make sure that we have that great media mix of reach, research, and data-driven analytics. With that, Megan, I'll turn it to you.
Sure. So as Hannah mentioned, part of this campaign does include legacy media, and just knowing that kind of our low hanging fruit is that Wasatch Front audience. We're using broadcast television and cable to really create that inspiration within the local population to come visit Moab. So we've contracted with each of the major network channels in market with 30 and 15-second spot placements. With our placement, we are guaranteed a one-to-one match. So really helping those media dollars go further in carrying this campaign into January. As we have the campaign placed, we are going to receive a minimum of 6 million impressions and create an 87% reach at a 13-time frequency to that kind of core Wasatch Front audience. Once we're done with that January delivery of added value, we'll come back and report to that total value received. In addition to television, we have some digital outdoor. This is again another great touch point for inspiration, just trying to drive that action through frequency of message within this audience. We had 4 weeks run of digital outdoor that ran across over 10 locations throughout the Wasatch Front. Again, waiting for that reporting to be, or that delivery to be reported back from our vendor, but we had a minimum of 90,000 ads flash per week along the I-15 corridor, just over 4.6 million impressions. Additionally, we have transit advertising within the Wasatch Front. These were both the high impact King Kongs, which are that large format side of the bus, as well as One Track's full side wrap that ran from daybreak up until the University of Utah. Another partner that's giving us a one-to-one match, we were able to guarantee the purchasing 1 month and getting 1 month free of this posting. That 2-for-1 flighting will run through December 18th, but we're likely to get additional coverage with those placements staying up longer. So we'll report to that final delivery again, probably early February. But as we're guaranteed, we have over 7.7 million impressions through these placements, and really kind of creating that inspiration message at more of a community level. Seeing these buses around your neighborhood, at least personally, it's kind of that awe-inspiring message right at ground level, really impactful there, and driving, again, layering on reach as well as frequency to the awareness campaign. And then we also had some targeted print placements. These are really supporting more of a niche affluent travel audience. We placed with Salt Lake Magazine, the November-December Utah Symphony program, and then at Eccles Theater in Salt Lake, they have Moulin Rouge running right now, and we have an ad in that program, as well as Pioneer Theater's A Christmas Story, the musical. In total, we had 4 print ads in total. It delivered 110,000 impressions circulation. The next slide is just an example of those print ads we ran. That's it for kind of that broad reach media through traditional, and Hannah will go over the digital components unless there's any questions.
Awesome. Great. So again, looking at the digital components of this was programmatic. We have Expedia and also paid social. And so again, this part was a little bit of a smaller budget for digital, a smaller flight. And so we have around 11.6 million impressions so far, a little bit of a lower post-impression rate, but we did just make an optimization. So that should increase over the next 2 weeks. Again, we're seeing ad exposure for hotel bookings as well, just shy of 1,000 so far. Again, paid social, we're seeing some really great engagement. And so we usually use about 1% for our engagement rate, which is inclusive of obviously clicks. You have the reactions, shares, comments, etc. Right now, we're just shy of 3%. And, we obviously very much look at what those engagements are when it comes to comments, because if you have 3% of all negative comments, it's not the same thing, but we've been really delighted to see some really healthy conversations around, the messages that we have. We're seeing some advocates that are standing up, and then people who are, engaging that aren't standing up, they're asking more questions, or they're more interested in a kind of those sustainability messages versus, things that we've had in the past. And so it's nice to see kind of that shift into some positive sentiment there. Again, so we have the science vertical. And so this is where we kind of talk about, different things that you might not know. And so we're seeing some really, really good engagement there. And I'll kind of showcase the top ads in a few slides. So far, though, after ad exposure, those 972 hotel bookings equate into 347,000 back into Moab. The ADR for Drive is a little bit lower, which is interesting. But again, we don't have TripAdvisor on this program. And then in addition to these dollars, Expedia does not allow us to track an impact. And so we obviously have their Expedia on platform bookings as well. And so right now we're looking at around a return on ad spend. So again, we're making sure that our targeting isn't to someone who's already looking at Moab. We're looking to convince them to come to Moab if they're looking at kind of some competitor, attractions or hotels or insights there. So far, again, we obviously want to make sure that we're driving intent to stay longer than 2 days. Most people right now are booking for 1 to 2 days. It's nice to see 3 to 5, about 18%. We hope to see that increase over time. Similar trajectory here. Again, a lot of love to the homepage, but you'll notice that the lodging options increased as number 2, and then Arches page is number 3. So again, it's interesting to see, our messagings are very similar. We have very similar kind of content pillars, but our CTA is different for Drive and Fly, obviously. And so it's just interesting to see kind of how our ad exposed audiences are going to your website and which content they're looking at. So this is what we were just speaking to again. So from a high level perspective, looking at the different verticals of messaging, we talk about kind of the soil and the importance of that to be careful of. Obviously, kind of the little shrimp that are alive that a lot of people were talking about, and just not being aware, right, that those exist and what we should know about them, that this is a whole living and breathing ecosystem, not just for us to walk on, Again, we're seeing some really, really strong engagement with the Drive video. Obviously, social loves video, and so we're using this across all of our audiences. And we're seeing some really, really strong video completion rate as well. So that video is so beautiful. So again, we're using those video assets across all of these different vehicles so that, we're getting that longer form messaging out there that associates with some of our copy. But here you kind of see how different ads speak to those verticals. We switch out the CTA. So some of it is a little bit more book now, some of it's a little bit more learn more, visit responsibly. These are the top 3 ads that we're seeing when it comes to an engagement rate perspective. So again, we changed the ultimate fall road trip, I think, in November, just to say road trip, so people understand that, you can drive to Moab in the winter, but there's things to focus on there, and it's a different type of trip. So we want to continue to educate and influence people to make that shoulder season trip. Here's some sentiment. Obviously, couldn't throw all of it there, but it is nice to kind of see how people are reacting to kind of the information that we're giving them on the soil, and having some good conversations about what protected dirt is, and people just being very positive about past Moab experiences, and wanting to kind of educate others. So across this, we are seeing that the science pillar, across social and display is driving that positive interest and engagement. So that type of education is really resonating in a positive way. We wanted to make sure that we're delicate with kind of what we're saying, not to be so preachy, but to let them know about what they should do when they get down here, so that they not only have a great experience, but they also are leaving the land in a better situation. Again, Expedia, we're looking at them to really up their engagement. We do have a program with them that has a donation aspect to it. And so as kind of comparing OTAs, TripAdvisor's driving a little bit more engagement on platform, but Expedia has a donation angle to it. So again, we'll kind of look at how these 2 programs wrap up. And again, you know, this one will be wrapping up right at the beginning, right at the end of this week, this year, excuse me. And so we're looking at kind of optimizations to be made, but we're looking to over deliver. So similar to Megan, she has some added value placements. We'll be getting some added value digital impressions as well. And that is what we have today. I can stop sharing in case someone had any questions for Megan or me. I know it's a lot, so we can send this to everyone involved, and then we'd be happy to kind of, you know, take those meetings offline.
Yeah, I know that our office is meeting with you tomorrow to dive into some detail, so I'll hold off anything I have and leave space for board members or other questions.
So my takeaway was that the science videos, ads were the most effective. Is that the takeaway?
Yeah, and so we saw that with one of our campaigns, that on paid social specifically, some of the ads that talk about more of the science aspect of education, where people might not know about kind of the soil or the organisms inside the soil, drove really positive and kind of curiosity of comments, where some of the landscape, you know, everyone kind of has seen that before. So it's interesting that people are swung towards kind of engaging and asking questions about kind of topics that they might not know about. So yeah, great insight.
Well, I mean, to me, I'm really glad, because that was kind of a divergence that we experimented with this year.
Yeah.
Based off of input from the community, and it sounds like it went very well.
Mm-hmm.
This roof looks like an alien.
That's
Just
very
saying.
true.
Well, there was some of that too. There was some conversations about that, you know, we hit a little bit, you know, talking about, you know, how Facebook is. Sometimes people go off and they were talking about how much that looked like an alien. I was like, okay, that's not really proactive, but nothing too negative.
Yeah. Maybe some of that engagement is just that thing is crazy and maybe not driving.
And they are beautiful ads. You know, you seen them? Yeah, my husband's a, you know, sports ball, but you know, he likes to watch sports ball. And the University of Utah game, we saw a lot of them.
Awesome.
They're beautiful.
Lacey, you unmuted.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I would love to get a copy of all of it so I could, you know, digest a little bit more, but it looks great.
Yep,
Yeah, well,
I'll send out the slides by the end of the week.
I just had a quick question about the fly stuff. Do you base it on the initial where you get onto a plane knowing that Salt Lake and Denver are the only places you can fly through to get here? Or and that's what makes them the most obvious? Or is it like you're saying Chicago seems more better and like there's more clips? So are you doing where the flights originate from? I mean, it's just the only way to get here is through Salt Lake or Denver or get out. So just asking.
So you're talking about how we selected those markets to advertise to. Yeah, we looked at kind of the main flights to make sure that people are aware that you can fly into Moab. When it comes to kind of bookings, we solely look at hotel bookings. So we do have flight search and flight bookings, but because that doesn't really matter for TRT, we're solely looking at the markets that we've advertised to in the hotel bookings. And so Salt Lake, Denver, and then Chicago are the top for those bookings as well.
But yeah, the logic behind selecting the markets are basically looking at the hub and spoke out of Salt Lake and Denver, because obviously Salt Lake and Denver is the easiest place to fly here from, and so everything else was what are markets that meet our goals in terms of high spend, in terms of long lengths of stay, and that there would be a that flight could be a convenience added value in trying to develop those markets to fly more into Moab and driving awareness that you can fly.
Yeah, like part of the data we were looking at, like I'm pulling up, like, because we look at which markets where people are likely to stay longer too, like Denver, 57% of people stay 3 nights or more. Phoenix, 67% of travelers stay 3 nights or more. So we look at all this different data and look at what would be the best markets to target based on what their behaviors have been.
Okay, as a foreigner asking a question, I'm curious about, it's my understanding that Delta Airlines has suspended their winter travel. Are we still marketing Salt Lake City flight travel while that has suspended, or are we gonna come back to that when that's an option again?
Wait, will you say that one more time? So the Salt Lake flight into Moab.
Been suspended as of the last several weeks. They're not flying over the winter. They won't come back until March. So if we're spending money in Salt Lake City to attract guests to fly here, we might want to rethink that.
Yeah, they shut down December 1st to March 1st as of right now. The Delta flight. to
Just
Salt
the
Lake.
Salt Lake flight.
Just
So
the
the Denver
Delta,
flights are still going.
just the
Denver's
Delta.
awesome.
Yeah.
And Delta
Yeah.
no longer flies to Grand Junction from Salt Lake like it used to, which was the other way to get to Moab.
Right.
But they don't do that anymore, so we're pretty much stuck on Denver right now
For flights. Yeah.
for flights.
Yeah.
On United. On the narrow, and United's only going once a day now, too.
Yeah.
That's okay. Okay, yeah, because right now our CTA is flights daily into Moab, so we might want to look.
That's why we changed it, because there are flights daily into Moab.
Right, I think we thought about this.
Yeah.
We talked about this.
We talked about it.
But let's dive into that on tomorrow during our meeting and make
Right.
sure that we're,
It makes sense.
I'm fairly sure we had already planned for this, but
So too, we'll talk about this in
wanted
October.
to make sure that, thanks for bringing that up.
But
Yeah,
the drive,
No, it's totally funny.
but the drive campaign will continue with transit, such as that.
Well, what's budgeted for the drive campaign is just this fall. So basically, we have funds from the state co-op grant that keeps the fly market going through the spring. And then we have additional funding that we haven't allocated for the spring and for the 2023 budget. That the original thought was that would supplement, drive market like campaigns throughout next year. So the drive market campaign, as it was budgeted, as it was put together, that wraps up now basically. The fly market campaign continues through the spring.
But but we could even look at rotating in some of like the drive messaging that was for Salt Lake into kind of the fly messaging for Salt Lake, right? If we feel like that's that CTA doesn't make sense
There's
anymore.
flexibility there.
There's a lot of flexibility, yeah, but great point.
That's good. Thank you.
Writing that note down, great.
Any other questions or thoughts for the love team?
So I saw a bus drive by when I was in Salt Lake over the weekend that had that science, the alien. crazy
Yeah.
alien. It was
You get
great.
your attention, right? With all the colors.
Oh, I'm sure it grew, yeah, it does. It's really, what's that? Discover Moab.
Okay, if there's no other questions for that, then we can move on to the next agenda item.
All right, thanks, you guys. Good to see everybody. Oh, and we didn't do the Canadian campaign, Melissa, so.
Yeah, Melissa, we can talk about this after, that was originally a proposal that had been discussed, but during deliberations of the county commission, it became focused on our local domestic markets.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
Everybody stay warm.
Awesome. Okay, love, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're free to leave. Of course you can stay, but I wouldn't if you decided to get on to evening.
Go and judge us. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next agenda item, which is 2023 budget update. Last meeting, we basically amended, I went over the budget request for next year. I went over changes that I wanted to add, and then the board edited the prioritized list of expenditures accordingly. So I'm just going to look at that really quickly, just so that we're all on the same page as to what was requested or recommended, I should say. And then I can go over basically what changes did or did not get made. Make sure that's good. And I should say that the budget technically hasn't been approved yet, but
Had the public hearing.
yeah, all the steps have been taken up to this point, except for the final vote, which happens next Tuesday at the county commission meeting. Okay, so this had been workshopped a couple times. But the high level change was as follows at the top of the document here. 2023 draft budget as presented by Economic Development Director August Granite to the Travel Council Board at the November 8th meeting. The above were the recommended changes. Increased support to the Monument Valley Film Commission, either via contribution from economic diversification TRT funds or via outside partnerships. To pull funds from TRT reserves in order to increase the quantity of expenditures dedicated to additional steady drip marketing in the paid media account. And otherwise, board did not object to August revisions to the draft budget as presented. So I'll go over those in just a second, but high level takeaways, where there was an extensive discussion about kind of the first point, with the conclusion being that the amount of money that was budgeted for next year with the film commission being around $150,000, and that not changing the budget item, but directing me to work with Brian and the Red Cliffs Foundation to put together basically a contract or a set of agreements that the county commission could consider and work towards kind of the latter piece here, increasing support to the film commission via outside partnerships. So I've begun, talking with Brian about that process. Basically where the Red Cliffs is their nonprofit foundation is in the process of being legally incorporated, and that likely won't happen. And Brian can correct me if I'm wrong here, until the beginning of February. And so basically in the meantime, I'll be working with Brian to put together an agreement for the commission to consider so that can start as soon as possible, or it can be considered as soon as possible. I guess, are there any questions on that process as it stands? So, for me, the main takeaway is that the commission was amenable to basically increasing the sum total of funds going towards film activities because it would be supplemented by this outside partnership. The county would continue to contribute if the county decided to agree to that kind of an agreement. And internally, we're kind of walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're walking and chewing gum at the same time by the operations are still in our office, and we're trying to work towards what could look like if it wasn't in our office at the same time.
Well, yeah,
There'd be more flexibility with the entity outside of the county.
But main takeaway was that recommendation was taken to heart and was acted on. And then for the pull funds from the TRT reserves in order to increase the quantity of expenditures dedicated to additional steady drip marketing in the paid media account. There's a lot of discussion on this. I think a lot of the commission felt like, and I'll go over these in a second, the other changes that were made increased marketing expenditures in a handful of ways. Ultimately, moving that line, which is $100,000, what was currently in the budget, the request was to add another $100,000 to it. That did not happen. So I don't know if I can't really speak to that as a commission decision, but maybe I can go through everything else that did get approved, and then we can come back to that. Or Mary, do you have any feedback on that? Okay, let me go through that. So this is a summary of the things that I wanted to add that we had discussed at the last meeting. And so basically, I'll start with all of the additional expenditures. So there were some changes into the data and research kind of focus areas that ended up being net neutral. But basically, changing around some of the structure, giving a little bit more money to data insight management, decreasing some of the survey programming, leaving some money for some resident survey and visitor surveys, and adding a new kind of special event analysis section, so that we'd be able to do a higher level of analysis of the economic benefit of the events that we give grant money to. Under international marketing, there was a significant increase here, a total of $42,000. So $10,000 for some international marketing strategy. We've been talking to a vendor who'd be able to basically support a lot of Melissa's work on the international marketing front. 20,000 for direct marketing and international, that would be cooperative marketing with the state. And then increasing budget for Melissa to go to key travel trade shows, and to international sales missions with the state. And so those were all approved changes. There were changes that added money to the special event grant program, the community event grant program, and 2 elements to bring the art trails contribution to what was requested, as well as a one-time contribution to try out this service. We discussed at the last meeting, but basically it's an engagement tool to provide a different kind of activity and different experience for folks in downtown to engage with our murals and art sculptures as a part of their experience, and creating a tool for them to go do that, and then drive folks to different places off of Main Street and put incentives and whatnot to local businesses alongside that. There was, and then this is the last piece here, so an additional small contribution to the MIC to support the rollout of the off-highway vehicle education standard that's starting next year, so that they have, iPads or something similar for folks to be able to do those when they show up to the MIC and they haven't gotten it yet. And then there was this was an additional request, $100,000 campaign for planning for a timed entry visitor education campaign, similar to what we did last year. Last year, we spent about double that, but hoping that the second time around requires less education, also just running into budgetary constraints. So this is the additional 100,000 for the additional steady drip marketing was the only thing that didn't get approved from all of those additional requests. Are there any? Oh, again, and then importantly, that draws money from reserves to balance off those additional expenses. And then there was 2 changes in our office for some personnel, basically increasing our capacity in our office to retain and recruit staff and prioritize new programming we're trying to lean into. Is there any questions on all of that? All of that is in the budget. All of that is been in the public hearing and will be considered for final approval next Tuesday.
I had a question, August.
Yeah, go for it, Lacey.
So then can you tell me where we landed on the steady drip marketing? How much is for that and is outside of fly campaign?
100,000.
100,000 total. And can you, either you or Mary, just kind of speak to what the conversation was around not allowing that extra 100,000?
I can.
Okay.
I knew this question was gonna come up, so I
Good.
pulled up all the
It was
data.
3 weeks ago and I kind of forgot.
Pulled up all the data. We are adjusted for inflation. We are still moving quite a bit ahead. We are close to 14.3% higher amount of visitation than we were in 2019. There was that dip in the summer, but since then it's come up a lot. So it's felt like what we're doing now is really working. Because we continue to have an increase. And even 14.3% is if we can't keep doing that year after year, because if you go back to 2016, it's a huge, 30% increase. So that's is almost unsustainable to keep increasing that to that degree. So the discussion was that by looking at the data of traffic trends, TRT trends, TRCC, and we adjusted it to inflation. So it wasn't taking, inflation's gone up so much. If we'd have just done that, it would have been inflated, just like inflation. But by looking at it, the market was what we did last year worked. We increased over, we didn't go as high as 2021, but that was such an odd year. But 2022 is still significantly above 2019.
And have you guys had discussions at the commission as far as like what percentage of growth you're looking for, like what is sustainable? Has anybody pinned that down?
We haven't pinned it down, no. We're right now, there's a few studies that we're working on. One of them, of course, is the water study. One is housing and capabilities that way, because we can't. So no, it hasn't been pinned down. There's a few, there's some loose ends that need to be worked on.
And Lacey, I think to that question, which is a really good question. I'm hoping that that's a discussion that can be had during strategic planning next year. Which we're trying to ask these questions, how, what is the ideal amount of growth, and what are useful metrics that we can all agree upon as we evaluate our performance as a community over time, and have that conversation collectively moving forward.
Cool, thank you.
And we had, the other thing was there was a 20% increase in number of beds available from 2019. So that was one thing that made it so that each motel wasn't feeling the increase, because there were more places for them to go. And when when everything's built out, because there's still things down the pipeline that were approved prior to the moratorium, it'll be 38% increase invested in a number of hotel rooms, beds.
Right. So I guess I would just say we have to take that into consideration on how much we can grow then, so that there aren't all of these vested businesses that we don't plan to grow into. So that's just something to think about as well. And then also, sorry, what?
Restate that. I didn't quite get what you said.
I was just saying, are all of those numbers being taken into consideration then when we're talking about how much we can or should grow, enabled like to keep these businesses that are vested, make them not necessarily profitable, but worth it, if we can keep up with what we've already vested.
So that they are successful.
Right, right.
Business is successful.
Right.
Should,
and so then if I understand right, so we've had about, if you take that 20 something %, we've had about 7% per year if you were to average it from 2019, did I understand those numbers right?
Go back.
You're talking about a 7% annual supply increase, basically?
Sorry, no, I'm talking about growth now.
Oh, sorry.
Growth, okay. The increase from 2019 to 2022 was an 8.1% per year.
Okay.
2016 to 2019 was a 7.2. In 2016, wasn't that the Mighty Five?
It was
So we
active.
saw,
definitely.
that's when we started seeing large increases and we started feeling growing pains. So we're increasing faster now since 2019 than we were from 2016 to 2019.
Right, right.
You can go look at all of this data. Just go to Grand County's website, go to
Mhm.
agenda and minutes. Click
Well, I can
on-
also share it. That's probably the better way.
Oh,
I can just share it with the board. That works.
And then you said a 38% increase in capacity if everything was built that was vested.
those people should choose to invest. Right now,
Right,
because of inflation and such, we're just across the board, we're not seeing as much development because of the supply chain. It's just too hard right now. And
Right,
so,
yeah.
It's, the building of more, which would help our present, the people that are motels that are already built, if it didn't keep increasing so much, because then
Right.
there wouldn't be so much to spread it around, so.
right. Yeah, thanks for going over those again. I just wanted to write them down.
Thanks, Lacey. Are there any other questions?
I was just gonna ask, because you had started with the recommendation from the board and related to the film commission, but then I didn't see it on the actual revised letter, anything that was actually stated as being revised. Was there a revision?
There's no change. They basically, just from the budget process, they just kept the amount that was dedicated to film at a little under 150. With the intention that being the maximum that the county would contribute. And that the decision of where that money goes is programmatic and is outside of the scope of the budget process, but that they're open to an outside partnership. And so that's why the next step is me working with Brian to come up with that partnership agreement.
We'll talk about this outside of this.
Yeah,
meeting.
sure. Anything else? I'm happy to adjourn early. It's December. And we're all thinking about Christmas. Any final thoughts? Hearing none, I'll adjourn. Thank you so much for taking the time today. And we'll see you all in January.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Holidays. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.